Hi there, I'm Dr. Karen James, a psychologist and energy healer in the UK. Welcome to the Life Made Easier podcast, where you will find ancient wisdom with a modern approach. In each episode, we're going to be sharing some useful information from the world of energy healing to develop and enhance your energy intelligence and to make your life easier in simple and practical ways.
And I'm Dr. Tiffany Hunter, an energy healer in the United States. So welcome. In today's episode, we're going to talk through some of the common misconceptions about meditation that might be getting in the way of your practice becoming consistent or successful.
Yeah, and I think our motive for doing this episode is really comes from our own practice, our own healing practices, where we see lots of people who are really excited about getting into meditation and committed to doing it. They understand the value of it, but then find it hard to sustain that practice and it kind of peters out. And what can then happen is, it gets added to that list of things I should be doing that are good for me. And then we tend to feel guilty about it, that we're not doing it at all, or we're not doing more of it. And, that a lot of things come up like, it's ridiculous. I can't find, an hour or however long to sit down and be quiet and try not to think in my day. And it's really common when we sort of talk to people about meditation, with that a lot of these kind of misconceptions come up, and I think the more we can talk about these things and do a bit of myth busting, hopefully we'll reduce some of the things that can get in our way in terms of either getting started with a meditation practice or in sustaining that practice.
Yes, very much so. And before we get into it, we just want to be explicit that we're talking about the kind of meditation that we're doing is one that really helps you get through the day, helps you reduce your stress, and can be used as a health benefit, one that makes you less reactive, less anxious, and gives your body and your mind and your energy a chance to work together and be relaxed. And so with that kind of meditation, please keep that in mind when you listen to us get into the specifics of what is and isn't necessary for your meditation practice to be successful.
Yeah, and as Tiffany said, it's really about kind of reducing your stress. So hopefully some of these things will also, further aid that endeavor. So we actually made a list of all the things we made a list of all the things we could think of that people have asked us about meditation, or we've read about meditation, that from our point of view with this particular way of practicing meditation, and if there are things in here that you like to do, that's great. It's just
Fantastic.
That they're not compulsory. That's really where we're coming from.
Yeah. And the list that we made has been focused on the things that we have found stressing people out and making them not do it. So as Karen says, if it's working for you and it's not stressing you out, fantastic.
Yeah. So the first one that we often hear is that you have to sit cross-legged or even in the lotus position. So for those of you who haven't done yoga, the lotus position is that extra cross-leg position where each foot is hooked over the other leg, and it's that kind of you often see images of Buddha sitting in the lotus position. And I think it's fairly safe to say that the lotus position is for the flexible. And that isn't to say that with practice we can't work towards that should we want to. But there will probably be, I'm going to, hazard a guess, a lot of people listening to this podcast for whom that may feel, certainly right now, impossible to sit, and maybe even sitting cross-legged on the floor is really uncomfortable for you. So just, sit however is comfortable. Ideally, your spine will be upright. I mean, you can do meditation lying down, but you are more likely to fall asleep, and that can make it harder to keep your mental focus. But, sit on a chair, lean against the wall, however is comfortable for you. I think that is, a really important thing. So sit how you like is basically our message with that one.
Yes. The second one is also about sitting. This idea that you have to sit totally still. That if you've got a scratch, if your nose itches, that you shouldn't scratch it. You should just sit there and observe the itch. And if your leg is falling asleep, that you shouldn't adjust accordingly, that you should just sit there and, right. You see what I'm getting at, right? But the simple truth is that in our experience, when you sit down to meditate, after a few moments, your body will adjust naturally, and that this is actually part of the process of, oh, well, now I'm more aware of my body, so I'm more aware this position is not so comfortable, so I am gonna change. And I think most people would agree that we don't really want to be meditating on what an itch feels like. Right. So if the entire meditation is now all about what does an itch feel like, I'm going to sit and pay attention to what this itch feels like. It actually creates more stress than just scratching the itch and getting back to your meditation techniques.
You actually reminded me, I once got quite into this idea. This is years ago when I didn't know as much as I know now about, we should just observe every sensation and not attend to it. And I remember hearing about this technique where you could imagine, if you feel an itch in your body, like imagine an ice cube on it to like relieve the itch. And I remember sitting there trying really hard to like imagine something cool and soothing on the bit that itched. And, I mean, I'm not saying again that those things can't work. And I think sometimes if we give ourselves a second, there may be sensations that we can just let pass on by. But actually, I probably put way more stress and effort into trying to imagine that than I would if I had just scratched the itch and moved on and,
Exactly.
allowed my body to have a momentary discomfort and attend to it.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, to be
And
responsive to the request of your body asking you to adjust something. And just to say again, there are meditation techniques where that attending to something and not scratching the itch has a longer term benefit that you're trying to get to with the meditation later on, and that you need to go through that process to get there. And there's huge value for that for people that are curious about those things. It's just not the meditation that we are teaching or that we're talking about. Our what we're talking about is much more rough and ready, and much more in service to your day, to your day to day life.
yeah, and also to just being kind to yourself, I think, it like
Mm-hmm.
looking after yourself, kind of taking care of yourself and allowing meditation to be one tool in that rather than some kind of endurance test or trial that you have to endure in order to tick your I am a good meditator kind of box.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of not in a dissimilar vein about box ticking and enduring things. There is often an idea that we have to meditate every day in order for it to be useful, and sometimes that we have to meditate at a set time of day. I mean, I've certainly read things over the years where meditation's better in the morning, or you should always start your day with a meditation practice, and if you miss a day, that's a problem. And for sure, there are cumulative benefits, and more regular practice, like with anything, will really help you to hone that skill. But again, in that effort to not just add it to your to-do list of things that you should do the best you can. If you can meditate more days than you don't, then that's a good place to be. If you can do 4 days a week, but if you start with two,
Yeah.
start small and build it up, and just a few minutes. And I think we're all different, so for some people having a set time of day could be really helpful, but for other people that would just mean they didn't do it. I mean, I'm somebody, my each of my days tend to look quite different, so if I was to say I have to meditate at this time every day, that would be really difficult for me to ever fit it in, because some days I'm just not home at that time, or I think make it work for you. Um, Sometimes attaching it to a particular activity can be helpful, like when you get home from work or when you first get up. um Maybe as you're putting your pajamas on before you go to bed, if you wear pajamas, or something can be helpful. But even just any minutes spent meditating are better than none. So even if all you manage before you get into bed at night is you sit with your feet on the floor, you take 3 really slow deep breaths, you feel your gravity on your body, you feel your feet on the floor, and then you get into bed. Even if you do nothing else, that's better than nothing. That will be more beneficial to you than nothing.
And in the same vein, don't feel like you need to meditate for an hour every time. As little as 5 minutes can be super helpful. Super
Yeah.
helpful. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, moving on to number 4. You do not need to be in a completely quiet environment to meditate. It can certainly be more pleasant and nicer if you're not interrupted. Especially if you're afraid of being interrupted and you're kind of half waiting for it to happen, it can be difficult. But there's absolutely no reason it has to be, because that's just a reality for the lives that many of us live. So try to reduce distractions if you can, but you can. One of the meditation techniques that we talked about in the other podcast is using sound to help our minds relax. And so sometimes even listening to the sounds that are around you can be very helpful in your meditation focus. And keep in mind that it is absolutely acceptable to put on some headphones, listen to a guided meditation, or even play some music through your headphones to help you out a bit.
Or sounds. I have I actually own the CD because it's that long since I had it, but a real CD.
A real
But I have one
CD.
that's actually just waves. It's the sound of waves.
Mm.
So again, finding something that works, and with that in mind, it can be easier to focus on sound in the way Tiffany was talking about if you close your eyes. But there is, often this idea, I have to close my eyes to meditate. And that's absolutely not necessary. Often helpful, but not necessary. So if for whatever reason, and this may be particularly if you're in a meditation class or something, or if you're just taking a few minutes to do a little meditation in your car before you get out, you might feel, actually, I don't want to sit here and completely close my eyes because I want to be able to have some kind of awareness of what's around me. It might just not feel comfortable for whatever reason. But if you don't feel comfortable closing your eyes, then I think generally finding just somewhere to rest your eyes is helpful. We can also meditate while we're moving, while we can do a kind of mindful practice. And obviously, if you're walking, you don't want to close your eyes because that, is dangerous. You may fall over.
Okay, so next on the list is that you have to sit down and make your mind blank and do nothing. Um, and and that's just absolutely not true. And I would actually go so far, I think we would both go so far as to say not only untrue, but kind of impossible. Thoughts really don't ever stop. It's more that thoughts get corralled. And so to meditate very successfully, just corral your thoughts into an area that's helpful for them instead of unhelpful. And you can do that by listening to the sounds that are around you. You can do that by doing a body scan, by doing a pendulum. And I'm throwing these names out, and these are all techniques that you'll find on our website. But you don't have to try to make your mind go blank. This is why guided meditations in your ears can be super helpful, and also listening to music.
Yeah. And another common idea is that busy people can't meditate. So, I'm too busy. I'm too busy to meditate. You're probably the person who most needs to meditate if you feel you're too busy to be able to fit in meditation. And, sometimes life can be stressful and very demanding and feel very overwhelming. And there's reality that if you have a very busy, full life with a lot of people needing stuff from you, it probably will feel harder to fit in. So I think again, as we've been talking about, even just those couple of minutes a day, you may find will be really helpful and actually may help you to feel a bit more order in the chaos, that if you can get that into a routine of even just taking those few breaths and slowing yourself down a little bit, using some of those techniques Tiffany was just listing that you will find on the website, can help you to cope with the busyness, and the business might start to feel less overwhelming and less kind of all over the place.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Another one are people's belief that they shouldn't get distracted, that when they're sitting down or meditating and they start to think about their laundry list or what they have to do today or how stupid their meditation practice is, that's a failure. And the truth is that's an inevitability for the species that you of bodies that you occupy, that we occupy. So it's absolutely going to happen. It's not a failure, it is inevitable. And part of what the meditation practice is to notice that you're getting distracted and then bring it back again. And so when we talked earlier about corralling your thoughts, whatever you're using to corral your thoughts, they've clearly broken the bounds of the corral and they're wandering all over the pasture, and they need to be brought gently and calmly back to the corral, right? So whether or not that's you've clearly lost track of the guided meditation, or you're not paying as close attention to the music anymore, or whatever it is that you've been using as your technique, just expect it's going to happen. And when it does, you very gently bring everything back again to what is more helpful for you to be thinking about.
Yeah, and it occurs to me just to add to that many things can divert our attention, can make our minds be distracted, and they can come from within ourselves. So, I mean, I don't know if anybody else has this experience, but sometimes my mind kind of interrupts itself. So you might also hear a noise outside. You might have a sensation in your body. And in a way, to a degree, we can treat those things all the same. We just notice them and gently, as Tiffany describes, corral ourselves back. But to refer you to one of our earlier points, if the thing that is distracting you is a physical discomfort, then we would really encourage you to attend to that and then bring your thoughts back. I think that can be a good way of looking after yourself within your meditation.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So the next item on our list is that you need to be good at visualizing. And, you have to, and this can come up particularly with guided meditations, I think. I've got to visualize I'm on a beach, or I've got to visualize I'm walking through the trees, or whatever it might be. And even if you want to give that kind of meditation a try, remember that you have more senses than just your eyes. So if you were to be in one of those environments in real life, physically, you would be absorbing that environment not just through what you could see. You would be, even if you weren't particularly paying attention to it, you would be hearing sounds, you would be feeling sensations in your body, you would be smelling whatever is around. So really, when someone is, or if you're trying to do a meditation where there is some kind of instruction to visualize something or imagine something, really try and bring in all your senses. Use what you can hear, or what you would be able to hear if you were in that environment. And I can speak very personally to this, that visualization is actually a skill that can be developed or improved. I used to find it really difficult, and now I'm much better at it. I can picture things in my mind much more clearly than I used to be able to. So it does come with practice.
Yes. Now, I of all the guided meditations I've done, I have never included things like imagine yourself on a beach. My visualizations have been more about using a visualization to connect to body sensations. And I think that's the same for you. Am I remembering that correctly? Is there a meditation I'm not thinking of?
No, I do have historically led some guided meditations where I'm more, imagine like you're like taking people on a little journey, imagining
Mm-hmm.
yourself somewhere. I often work a lot with the elements, so kind of, fiery energy of the sun, or the water, waves, or being next to a stream, or connecting with the earth, that kind of stuff. I do a fair bit.
Interesting. I think I don't do it because I am so terrible at visualizations, but you're
Right.
right. I can get better at it. So I will include it. Okay, so moving on, the belief that you need to have a spiritual or a religious practice, a belief to or practice to meditate, and that's absolutely not true. Again, that is not true for the style of meditation that we're talking about. There are many religions and spiritual practices that have meditation incorporated into them, and prayer certainly can be thought of as a form of meditation. But the kind of meditation that we're referring to is more a kind of the quality of life orientation and a self-care practice. And it can be thought of as building a relationship with yourself and making your life easier and finding ways to have balance between your mind and your body. And all of those goals and all of those intentions are a parallel process, parallel experience than any spiritual or religious practice or belief.
Yeah, and I think that can help make it more accessible, can't it? Because I think if if you already have a spiritual practice and a meditation is part of that, you're probably, you're already have something of that in your life. But if you're just new to meditation, it can, make it more accessible if I don't then have to take on a belief system, which maybe I don't have. Or if you have an existing belief system, you can also try the kind of meditation we do that will have a value and a place too. Okay, so the next one on our list is there is only one way or a right way to meditate. And I kind of feel like we've probably, hopefully, already answered this. Find a way to suit you and your lifestyle. And we're certainly not saying, all the other types of meditation that are out there, some of which we've just vaguely touched on. There's value in all of them. So, do a bit of research, find things that, suit you, work for you. Have a listen to ours, but have a listen to other types of meditation and see what speaks to you. I think for me, there's also something about the voice of, if you're going to listen to some kind of guided meditation, it's really important to find someone who has a voice that you like to listen to and you find relaxing. Some people's voices just work for you and some don't. So there is no right way to meditate. Discover what works for you and try different things. That's okay.
Yeah, you just made me clarify for myself why I don't do the meditation if I'm walking down the beach. Because when I'm on the receiving end of it, what often happens for me is that they'll say something like, and now turn left onto the path. And my reaction is, but I wasn't imagining a path. And now I have to add a path. And it feels intrusive. So yeah, very much so. There's so many ways to different ways to do it. You can absolutely find one that works for you. All right. So many people believe that meditation is something that you should do to fall asleep. And, meditation is certainly relaxing, and I think it can absolutely help with sleep. But there's also something to be said for meditation as a focused alertness. And it's a practice of paying attention, not just shutting yourself off, right? Now, having said that, the process of getting the mind and the body and the energy all working together, which is what's happening with meditation. And if that's a new concept to you, go find our other episode where we talk about what meditation actually is doing, and why it's successful. So there's something to be said for once that process is happening, where the mind and the body and the energy are all in the same frequency and they're all playing nicely together. There is that beautiful where everything feels better, which does make it easier to fall asleep. But that's not necessarily what the purpose of it is. And it's also very common for people to fall asleep when they're in the beginning of their meditation practice. And that's because in our culture, it's very uncommon for us to be relaxed and alert at the same time. And if any of you have owned any animals, then you'll know that a cat and a dog, and I imagine a horse, although Karen, you have far more experience than I do, they have beautiful examples of complete and absolute relaxation to complete alertness. Sometimes you can even see the ears of the animal twitching for the sound, but the rest of their body is entirely what looks like they're comatose, but they're really just relaxed. Humans aren't great at that. And so we can fall asleep. But that is part of the meditation purpose, is to learn how to be relaxed and alert and not fall asleep. Because wouldn't it be wonderful if we could take that experience into our everyday life and be that relaxed while we're still functioning? Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can learn a lot from animals about kind of being more in the moment, and sometimes being around animals can actually support us being in a more relaxed state. And I guess that, there's an overlap between relaxation techniques and meditation techniques, but you might use a relaxation technique deliberately to try to fall asleep. Whereas, as Tiffany says, with the meditation, we're trying to stay more alert and focused, but in a really nice, relaxed way. And I think we are almost at the end. I think we're actually at the end of our list here. So our last misconception about meditation is that you have to achieve a particular meditative state in order to have a successful meditation. So you may find that you do shift into some kind of state which feels a little bit different to your normal kind of state of awake or alertness. And sometimes people describe a sort of, I was present and I would have heard something, but I was kind of also not here at the same time, a kind of liminal space between. But generally, as we have been saying throughout this episode, the most important thing is the effort, the giving it a go, giving your body, your mind, your energy system space and time to slow down and come into a better balance. And if one day, really what you do is just sit and quietly breathe, and you find your mind slows down a little bit, but you don't really feel in any particular other state, that's okay too. It's like the goal is not to get, and it might be the case with other forms of meditation, but certainly with this kind of meditation, the goal is not to get yourself into some sort of other state of mind that is different to normal. So it should be possible with the type of meditation we're talking about to do your meditation and then get up and engage in your day fairly quickly, although sometimes in a slightly slowed down way, which I think is probably only a good thing, allowing yourself to hold on to that slightly more slowed down state.
I was trying to think of a good analogy for this, and the best one, we'll see if it works for people, is marathon running, right? So I think we can all agree that running a marathon is really a fantastic way to be healthy and has all kinds of health benefits if that's what you're doing, is running marathons. But that's not everybody's goal, is to be able to go run a marathon. And just being able to run a mile is still extremely healthy. And you know what? Walking briskly to get your heart rate up is also incredibly healthy. And so maybe you're starting off by walking briskly in order to build up to doing a marathon. But I guarantee you, if all you're doing is going for good, solid walks, you're getting great health benefits.
Yeah. So it's really that kind of, I think that would be our main message from this, be comfortable and find a way of doing meditation that really works and fits for you. And if it starts to feel like it's becoming a chore or overly complicated, then that may be the time to just step back for a minute and say, okay, is there a way I can change something that will make it more likely that I'll do it? Even if that is just a few minutes, most days. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Great. Well, thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Look forward to seeing you next time.
Hi, I'm Carol Smith, the producer of the Life Made Easier podcast. We hope today's episode gave you some meaningful tools and takeaways to help make your life feel a little lighter. You've reached the end of this episode, but not the end of the ways that you can support us. Please subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app. Follow us on social media, and check out our Patreon for extra content and ways you can go deeper with us. There's also a whole library of episodes waiting for you to help increase your energy intelligence. Take care, and we'll see you on the next Life Made Easier.